reason your face is front and center.
Mine is?
Yeah, it should be just John.
All right.
Okay, everybody quiet.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dracut Connection. Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2020.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your Dracut Connection.
What's the date?
Today is April 25th. Oh, I'm sorry, April 7th.
All right, that's better. I thought I'd lost a couple of weeks now.
All right, we got to get the studio to hang up the phone on the other end. Yeah, here we go. All right, I just hung up with them, so I can now concentrate on you. I had the earpiece going with them in the ear. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dracut Connection. It's April 7th, 2020. It is actually my 25th consecutive day in self-imposed quarantine. So if I get a little screwed up tonight, please, I apologize. We're joined tonight by an all-star cast. We have George Bogue. George, say hello to folks.
Hello, all.
And we have Gordy Scott. Say hello, Gordy Scott, who's been missing in action for a while. He's back with us.
How you guys doing? I hope everyone's safe.
Yeah, there you go. We're rolling. We're going out to Dracut, and we have the indomitable Brian Bond, and he's with us.
Hey, John, glad to be here. Should be an exciting night. Good to have Gordy back on the big screen with us.
My wife just came in to tell me it isn't April 7th. It's April 9th. My God, am I gone? It's April 9th. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight. We've got a good show for you tonight. We got a lot to talk about. We got things to talk about, what's going on in town, as well as the China virus. We got Gordy Scott, who's going to give us a report on his personal modeling of where this thing might be going. But before we get to any of that, we have, I think, I don't see him up here yet. Sean Kelly's supposed to be joining us. Do you see him anywhere, Brian?
I've just admitted him, so.
Okay, why don't you text him and try to see? But we do have Sean Kelly going to be joining us from Mill City. There he is right there from Mill City Weather. As soon as he's up and running, we'll switch to Sean Kelly and have him give us a weather report. As we know, it's been cold and rainy, but we want to hear it right from him. So what's been going on? Let's start with you, Gordy. We haven't seen you in a while. How's that wonderful wife and family of yours? I hope they're all being safe.
Yeah, well, my wife, for those of you that don't know, she works at Lowell General Hospital. She's a transporter there, and things are not good at the hospital. She's seen a lot of bad stuff at the hospital. So, you know, there's been some deaths at the hospital in Lowell. Things are tough. I've been working at home now for the past 2 weeks, so I've been staying in. We did go grocery shopping tonight, so we got that done. And as you know, on my Facebook page, I've been posting the new cases that have been coming in. Things are looking better. Looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, but we're staying healthy, and we're hoping that everyone watching and all the hosts with us tonight are everyone safe. But I think we're past the peak and we're on the way down. So that's good news.
That's great. I hope you're going to have some figures for us. Brian, if you could, Sean, as soon as he's ready to go, I'm ready to go. I see
I think I'm on now, right?
Who's on there?
Yeah, you're on.
Sean,
I'm on, okay. It's a new setup. I actually just plugged my TV into the front room here, so let's get started. Here's the forecast for tonight. Hopefully you guys can see that at home. 37 degrees, partly cloudy. It's kind of rainy out, but the rain's starting to wind down as it's pushing into eastern Mass and out into the seacoast right now as it touches that low pressure system. Winds 15 to 20 miles an hour. Could be a gust over 30 miles an hour as we head early on into the evening tonight, of course. As we're heading to your Friday, let's see if we can pull that up there. Yeah, there we go. 49 degrees, watch hour early in the morning.
7 weather.
Winds for 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusts over 20 miles an hour as we head through the day on Friday. Friday night, we're going to drop down to 35 degrees, wind from the west, 10 to 15 miles an hour. As we head into your Saturday, nice day overall if you get out there, 6 feet away, of course. 50 degrees, clouds and sunshine, winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. And that's what we're going to be staying with through the day on Saturday. Saturday night, we're going to drop down to 30 degrees, becoming clear through the evening. Here's a look at the 8-day forecast. If you look at Tuesday, 60 degrees, we have that for Tuesday now. 30% chance for a few showers, a little bit unsettled Monday through Wednesday. But Easter sunny is going to be nice. Temps near 60 degrees.
Thank you very much, Sean. How you doing otherwise?
Doing great.
Yeah, I've had a couple of days where I've seen Sean quite a bit on some remodeling at my house, but we're social distancing. Sean drops stuff off the car, and I do everything on telephone. AG has been working with us, and we just finished doing the living room, kitchen, dining room, and I'm done painting. Thanks again, Sean.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Great day.
You too.
So we were just with, we will apologize now before we go too far into this for any technical glitches. This Zoom conferencing and Zoom broadcasting is like a whole new thing for us, but we're learning as we go along. So I just got through with Sean. We had an update from Scott, Gordy Scott. Now we're going to turn to George Bogue. Well, how you doing, Georgie?
No, not too bad. Not going too stir crazy yet. Today was my day to go into work, so I had to go in, do the checks, that sort of stuff. But also I went to, there's a restaurant I usually eat at, so I figured I'd go by today, buy some stuff from them, since they're probably hurting. But we're surviving. We haven't like killed each other yet.
Well, that's very good. And Brian, how are you doing?
Well, John, you know me. I do a lot of social distancing when I do some hiking, and I just wanted to show you this little bear track we ran into last week. I don't know if you could see that. You got that up on the screen?
Yes, we can see that.
Yeah.
See that bear track there? That was a big bear. We were like seconds behind it on the mountain, so that was a little bit of an excitement that we ran into. So we do these off-trail hikes and we don't see a soul, which is nice. So bushwhacks, fun time. You remember the bushwhack, John? We did Mount Arlington.
Oh, you talking to me? I'm falling.
Wake up, John.
You fall asleep?
I'm falling asleep because we hear about these mountain climbing stuff.
All right.
Hey, if he runs into a bear, that'll be good video.
I know. So, Gordy, what did you have to say? You have something to add here?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask George. It looks like he's getting the beard's getting along, the hair's getting along. If you haven't been able to get to the barber shop yet?
I wish the hair was getting long, but the beard is a little straggly. I have to trim the beard this weekend.
All right. I just wanted to make sure.
So we're trying
Enough
to
chit chat. John, what are we talking about tonight?
Who was Phoenix 3? I'd like to find out who that is that we got popping up here. We're going to start off with a little bit of talking about the town.
Whoa. John, you haven't told us what you've been up to.
Oh, what I've been up to. I kind of enlightened you a little bit when I was talking about Sean. We've been remodeling our downstairs of our house here on Arlington Ave. We did the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen, and we have a sitting room, it's an open concept, and we did it all. We repainted the whole thing, and now we're changing over hardware on doors and cabinets and stuff. So it's stuff that my wife wanted to do when we moved in a year ago, and of course I didn't have the time to do it. So now we have the time, and it kind of kept my mind off of all of the stuff that's been going on around us. But that's what we've been doing. My daughter, as you know, my younger daughter, is a nurse at Beverly Hospital, so she's been pretty busy. They had yesterday. She told me they had over 70 patients. They have now. Originally, she was on a floor that had were the presumptive cases, it was Surge Med, but when they're not doing any surgeries, there's no recovery. So they turned it into a presumptive before testing or waiting test results for COVID. But they had an entire floor that was dedicated, and now her floor has turned over to positive cases, and there's over 70 cases. And the peak isn't expected till the beginning of next week. So she's telling us that there's been a lot of death, and she's been holding up pretty good, but I noticed a little bit of sadness. And but you know, they're in a tough position. Your wife sees it, but the nurses and doctors, and the nurses are on the front line, and they're holding hands of people while they're talking on Facebook to their kids or their parents or whoever. And you know, it's like the end of the line. And but we're trying to keep her spirits up, and hopefully they'll turn the corner next week.
How about the flag behind you, John?
You like that Betsy Ross flag, huh?
I do like it.
Yep. But later on in the show, if you remind me, I'll take that flag down and reveal what's really behind there, Gordy.
Well, I think I can see what's behind it. It's a little corner there.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of the blue, but that could be anything, right?
It might end with a T and then start with a T and end with a P, baby.
Yeah. So let's get started on some of the things we want to talk about tonight. One of the things I want to talk about is, and Brian, you posted it on Facebook on our Facebook page, the Dracut Connection. So why don't you talk a little bit about how Ann Vandal took our advice from our last show. If you remember, George and Brian, we talked about how we thought that the town should be more, the town administration should be more active or more proactive on Facebook, using social media and using DATV to tell the folks in town what's going on. So Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about that video?
All right. Thanks, John. So yeah, a little while back, you know, you and I were chatting off the air or whatever over the phone there, and we were saying how we really haven't heard anything locally, you know, what's going on, because this event, it's really not the national, it's not the national folks that are telling us what to do. It's really state and local, and you know, we do hear a lot from Trump and the team, and they've been doing a great job. And recently we heard from Charlie Baker, but we weren't hearing anything locally what's going on. So we posted, you know, that concern, and the message probably got out there, and did a Zoom video, which was about a half an hour long. And honestly, I think she did an excellent job in informing the folks. She seemed a little nervous at first, but then she kind of loosened up and did a really good job. And in fact, I posted on there, I hope you guys don't mind, because we might have to get rid of one of you, but if she doesn't get the manager's gig, we've got a gig for her right here on the Dracut Connection.
Absolutely, we can make room for her. I thought she did a good job. I did watch it, and I thought she did a very good job, and I wish that she would do more of it. And Brian, we did talk about it on the show, where we talked about Jesse Forcier and the Board of Selectmen, and for whatever reason, the Board of Selectmen, we know that the social distancing is supposed to be taking in effect, but other cities and towns are operating and continuing their administration, and I don't understand why they haven't had a meeting since, when they can do it via the Zoom, or they could use a Google app that also has Google Meetings. You can do this and connect it to Dracut Connect, Dracut Access Television. We were the first to do it with Dracut Access TV, and then Dracut Access TV took it and used it for the planning board, and I believe there's other meetings going on through this. I watched a planning board meeting on here the other night. I know they can't do the public hearings, but they can still hold their end of the meetings and get some work accomplished while we're kind of in this holding pattern. I will say this: I did have a email exchange with Ann Vandal, and it was amazing how fast she got back to me. And that's a good thing. And her and I are going to sit down and have a talk, because I don't want her to think that my criticism of the town or her and her being a choice for manager is not something that I say is vicious, or because I don't like her, because I happen to like her very much. I've had a lot of good relationship working relationship with her when I was on the board, as well as when I was off the board. So I just wanted to sit down, and we're going to have a sit down and talk, and we're going to actually have a Zoom meeting. But other than that, what say you, Gordy? What do you think about that with the Board of Selectmen? Do you think that they should be waiting till the 21st of April to have a meeting when they have the impending choice or interviews for the manager? I mean, shouldn't we be going forward with this?
Yeah, I really think we should. If you remember a year ago or so ago, they were all given Surface tablets by the town that the town paid for technology. So as we do Zoom meetings here, there's no reason, and the great job that Ron and folks do down at Dracut Access TV, there's no reason they can't do the same thing with the Selectmen's meeting. I think they could have those meetings, publish them, publicize them on Dracut Access TV, and go from there. I don't know why they're holding off as they are.
George, what's your input on that?
Yeah, no, they probably should have a meeting. They usually meet, what is it, once a month?
They meet twice a month.
Twice a month. So yeah, maybe cut it down to once a month. But yeah, they should be having regular meetings.
Brian, what happened to the bylaw or the requirement that the board was supposed to have a choice within place within 120 days? Seems to me we're either on that deadline or it's over.
Well, I can't really pressure them into pushing that. I get it. I'm okay with them extending that a little bit. I don't know if we've gone over that deadline, but I'm okay with it. As things start to settle in, though, they've got to jump right on it and get moving. I've said right from the beginning, I think that, in the end, Ann will be our next town manager, the permanent one. And with the same idea that I think on the presidential end of it, we can chat about this later. I don't believe Biden will be the Democratic nominee. I think at the convention they'll have somebody else. Somebody else would be taking that seat because Biden is kind of out there. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. I have always said that I thought that they should go forward. Now, I understand the beginning of the social distancing and not knowing where we were going and everything, but now that we know we have a 30-day window, and actually it's going to be longer than 30 days. I don't believe we're going to be back in some semblance of normalcy and openness until at least June 1st. And I don't think it's going to be fully implemented by then. I think it's going to be a gradual opening type thing. And, there's so many things going on as far as what people are going to be doing going forward and how we handle everything. Until there is a treatment that's proven, and then until there is a mitigation to a shot that can prevent it, then we're gonna have this kind of a scare hanging over our heads. Gordy, you did.
John, can I talk about the actual virus and the number of folks that are affected compared, the number of folks that have been tested, the ones that are affected, the number of folks that have died, and because there's that denominator out there. We know that X amount of folks have died from it, and we know that there's so many folks that have contracted it. But what we don't know is the number of folks that actually have it. And until the testing gets done, because that's what, I hate to say it, but they're really pushing that scare factor. There's a certain segment of society that's pushing that fear factor. And we should all be concerned, right? But they're trying to scare it and they're trying to sensationalize it more than what it really is. Because as soon as we know that number of folks that actually have it, because they're walking around, they don't even know it, or they've recovered from it, the ratio will come way down. That numerator and denominator is going to, the percentage of folks that actually have it in society and the folks that have died will be very, very low. So what say you guys on that subject there?
Oh, go ahead, Gordy. You have anything to say on that?
Yeah, obviously there isn't, most people are not, I would say the majority of the people are not getting tested for COVID-19. I have a personal friend that actually has COVID-19. He's just recovering. He held off to try to go to the hospital, but he finally did. And, when you come home, obviously your whole family is infected because it's spread so quickly. In my estimation, it's about probably 1 in 5 people are actually going to the hospital to get tested. My company, the MITRE Corporation, is working with other companies within the United States and worldwide. Our website is C19HCC. So it's COVID-19, C19HCC.org. You can get a lot of information out there. We have a lot of data out there about, there isn't a lot of data about the ages. It's probably about 10% we have the ages of the people that are getting it. As you would expect, it's all many older people. There are a few 18 to 24, 25 to 30 that are getting the virus, but the symptoms aren't as severe as those that are older. But obviously, there are a lot of people out there, and you guys can attest to this, that you don't feel well. You go to bed for a couple of days and you wake up and you feel better. So most of the people, I don't think, in my opinion, probably 80% or higher, are not even going to the hospital or are trying to get any treatment at all. So obviously the numbers are much higher than what are reported, but most of those people that don't go to the hospital are not dying either. So you just have to take that with a grain of salt.
I've heard from television sources and news sources that there is an estimate of probably 70 million people that are walking around with it asymptomatic, that don't even know they've had it or they have it. I have a couple of friends of mine that think that they might have had it because they were not feeling well. They had some of the symptoms that everybody's talking about. It never grown or never got to the point where they had to go to the hospital. They thought it might have been a touch of the flu. But and I'm sure there's going to be many of that. But as you know, Gordy and George, until there's a serology test that can tell us what the antibodies are and to tell us who has the antibodies that are developed after you have a virus. And I don't think, Gordy, that you're going to see this country or any country for that matter test every one of their citizens. We have over 300 million people in this country. And if we tested every one of them right now, today, there's no guarantee that when they walk out the door from that testing that they don't get it. So that's a ridiculous thing for anybody to be saying we should be testing everybody. The most important test is the serological test. Am I right, Gordy?
Exactly right. I mean, all you can do is there's just not enough tests to go around. You can basically take your temperature, make sure that, as a person, if you're not feeling well. If you're not feeling well, don't go to work. Other than that, if you're carrying it, for all that I know, my wife works at a hospital. She's probably the most likely to get the virus. If she comes home, I'm going to get it. I haven't had any symptoms. But, I could be carrying it. I don't even know. So, it's one of those things that, I feel that I'm healthy, but I did talk to my friend that's my age, is 50 years old. He was short of breath. He had some of those symptoms. So, and there are 2 strains of the virus out there. So if you get, the L type versus the S type, you're less likely to get the symptoms that other people are, the more severe symptoms. If you get the S type, you're more likely to go to the hospital and, have those symptoms and eventually die. For those of you that have, asthma, diabetes, there's a lot of people out there that have pre-existing conditions that are getting this virus and not doing so well. So
I have a friend of mine from Florida whose son had been sick for 4 weeks, and he didn't, he was in the hospital, he was out of the hospital, they didn't test him, and finally they tested him, and it took him like 5 days to get the results back, and he had already turned the corner to getting better, and that he was positive. And now his wife had to be tested and his 2 children. So what they're doing now is they're waiting for him to be fully recovered and they're gonna do the plasma thing and give it to the children so that they can have some level of protection. But George, I want you to chime in here. What do you think about this testing stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, that seems to be the problem is there's not enough testing, though they're opening up like they did over in Lowell, this drive-through thing. So, I think that once there are more testing, it should be that, if you don't feel well, like Gordy says, stay home. But, you should be able to go to the doctor's office and they should be able to test you. And then, once you can identify someone that's positive, then just track down who they've been in contact with. And, just keep monitoring it that way. The big problem going into this was everyone was afraid everyone would get sick at the same time and just overwhelm the medical system. It appears that's not happening. I just saw a thing today that they'd set up one of these temporary hospitals in Seattle a couple of weeks ago. That, thank God they didn't need it. They're now, taking it, maybe redeploying it somewhere else. Same thing here. You see, like in Boston, they're setting up these temporary things. Hopefully we don't need that. And then, once we get past this peak, like I say, just kind of monitor people that test positive and just keep track of their whereabouts and who they're with and who they've been with. And then, it's going to be like the flu. Everyone will get sick, just not at the same time. That's the big problem if it all happens at once.
Yeah, Brian, you heard about the Lowell testing site, and that what do you know about it? And if you do know anything about it, I mean, I know a little bit about it. That from what I've heard and read, that the testing site is not for just anyone that just walk in and get tested. It's for first responders and anyone that might have symptoms, but you can't just walk in there and get tested. Do you know that to be true or not, Brian?
What I know is it's by appointment only. That's what I've heard and I've seen. So I would imagine, you've got to somehow reach out to your primary care physician and get an appointment set up to go down there and get tested. And, so which isn't a bad thing because, everybody's scheduled at a certain time. You won't have an inrush of folks coming. So that's a good thing, and George, like I also heard, part of that IHME study that's out there, when they talk about bending that curve down and the projections of, they originally projected there was going to be, 240,000 deaths. And now that study also took into the account of the social distancing, but because nobody really knows, that number was reduced down to, I think, 90,000, and now that's down to 60,000. So they overestimated that number of folks passing from this. That's why I'm one of those few that say that, they've hyped this thing up. I think we all have to be very concerned, but they hyped this up so much that they scared the bejesus out of everybody, right? And everybody's home, and you should be very cautious and all that, and of course, self-isolate, all that stuff. But I think the narrative coming from the left, from the media, the media, is trying to, scare everybody and blame it on Trump. This is Trump's fault. So that's what do you say, John?
Well, that's a good segue into the next segment here that I wanted to get into.
Actually, can I chime in one thing on that?
Sure you can. Go right ahead, George.
Part of the problem is, the biggest, hardest hit place right now is New York City. And where is the media based? So, I mean, they're acting like the whole country is New York City. And, if you go to that Johns Hopkins website, you get those big red circles around, New York, New Jersey, and all that. You look at upstate New York, there's outbreaks, but there's not a lot there. So, this right now, at least, this is a big city problem. You look at LA, you look at Chicago, you look at New Orleans, you look at Boston, and, it's almost starting, if you look at that map, it's starting to kind of look like that presidential election map that, the hardest hit places seem to be the Democrat states. So that's starting to play into the whole bash Trump narrative too, I believe.
I think you're right. Before we get into the whole Trump thing, because I do want to move on to that quick. We've already been a half an hour into the show, believe it or not. And I wanted to get to the Trump and the whole national thing. But Gordy, do you know what the figures are as of today in Dracut?
I don't know about specifically in Dracut, but I knew nationally that the numbers have been going up and down. In the last 4 out of the last 6 days, the numbers have dropped nationally. So that's a good thing. And 2 other points I wanted to bring up is, I don't know if most of the viewers have seen some of the videos from the people that were near death with COVID-19 and were able to go to the drugstore and get hydroxychloroquine. There was one specific one was the congresswoman in Michigan that her husband went and got it. Michigan actually passed a state law that overrode Trump's right to try law. And he was able to get a few pills, I think 4 to 6 pills, and she took them. 2 hours after she took them, she was completely fine, and she was near death. So I've seen a bunch of videos. I've probably watched 8 to 10 videos over the past week where people that were near death survived because of the hydroxychloroquine, and because of Trump's quick action to do that, to pass that law. I think that's one thing that's not talked a lot about in the media. And the second thing is, real quick, I want to talk about is there was a study that was released by Harvard Medical Center, where I don't know if you guys know about this, but when the Spanish flu back in 1918 hit the United States and the world, millions of people died. And so they noticed, one physician noticed that the guinea pigs were actually also dying. The lab guinea pigs were dying of the Spanish flu. So this led one of the scientists to do some testing about that. So as you know, as Trump has said, is once the weather warms up, this virus will die off because the weather is warm. It's getting warmer. Well, that's not specifically the case, but if you look at the test, and that's something I can put the link on the Dracut Connection page. He did a specific test, not only in regard to temperature, but humidity. So it seems that humidity in the colder climates kills the virus. So as you'll see, as the temperature gets warmer, not only warmer, but more humid. So it seems like 80% humidity is the set point where you want to get to. So what he did is basically took 2 guinea pig cages, put them right next to each other, and put a fan. One was an infected guinea pig, the other one was not infected. And as he blew the fan across from the infected to the uninfected, when the humidity hit 80%, the virus did not transmit to the other guinea pig in a separate cage. So once it was below 80%, the virus transmitted almost 100% of the time. So it's not so much temperature as it is humidity. So that's very important. As we get into June, July, and the humidity starts rising, you're going to see this virus very much drop off very quickly.
Well, we hope we don't have to wait in quarantine for that long.
Yeah, I'll post my chart to the Dracut Connection site as well. My original, if you go back and look at my original one from a couple of weeks ago that I posted my chart from a couple of weeks ago, it looks like it's going to be sometime in mid-May that the virus will go under 1,000 cases per month, per day. Once that happens, I think it'll be start being safe to go back to work, integrating with other people. Those people that have, if you have a pre-existing condition, I would still recommend that you would stay at home. But those who are pretty healthy could probably go back to, in my opinion, they can go back to work probably mid-May. But if you have a pre-existing condition, I would recommend staying home mid-May and probably for a few more weeks.
Well, just to let you people know that as of yesterday at 4 o'clock, Dracut had 62 confirmed cases of COVID. And as of today at 4 o'clock, we have over 74. So there's like, that's a big jump. That's a big jump. So what do you have to say, Brian?
Gordy, tell me if I'm going to see if I can find a link to that that study. I'm going to try to upload this. Let me see here. I'll see if I can share it.
Well, while you're
right
doing
now.
it, why don't we go on talking so we don't have dead air going on? Oh, there you go.
Is that it, Cody, right there?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Yep.
If you want to explain that while we're kind of looking.
Yeah, so basically what he did, you can see from 1 to 2, the one cage had those guinea pigs did have the virus, and what he did is what the picture doesn't show is there's a fan blowing from right to left. So from 1 to 2, the direction of the wind was going from 1 to 2, and so you can see this the B in the B section, the transmissions when it was at 41 degrees Fahrenheit. But it was relative humidity was like 35%. The transmissions were 100%. And when they lowered it to 80% humidity, it was about 50% at 41 degrees Fahrenheit. So when the temperature got to 68 degrees and low humidity, which is 35%, and which you see there in C, was 100% still transmission. But at the 80% humidity and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, it was 0% transmission. So you can see there, humidity is a huge factor when it comes into the spread of the virus. So as the temperatures rise, humidity rises, you'll see that the spread of the virus decrease exponentially.
That's all good stuff. Good things to be aware of, and I think.
So it's one of those things that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can see there's clearing that's coming.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. That's what we want, right? So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about what is going on the national level, level. What are we seeing on the state level? I mean, we've had good marks for Charlie Baker and how he's so far presented himself in handling the conferences and what have you. I have a couple of questions that I'm concerned about. One being that, we talk about essential workers and people who are essential going out and being, continuing to operate. I'm a little concerned that the shopping markets took so long to really focus on the social distancing and not allow as many people in the store at one time. Brian and I had talked about that on our live spur of the moment broadcast that we did about a week ago. But now we see that a lot of your shopping centers like Market Basket and Hannaford's and those companies are starting to slow it down by not putting too many people in their stores. But I believe that Baker also implemented a cap on, I think it was 1/3 of the amount of people that were allowed in the store at a given time. Only have 1/3 of that in there and try to make it so that it's forcing a social distancing, because you see way too many people going into the shopping center. And I understand everybody's got to eat. My wife and I and my daughters haven't gone to a shopping center or a shopping store. We're using Instacart to get our food, which is working out fairly well for us. We've had no real problems getting food. We had to wait for an appointment, but you don't wait till you run out of food before you do that. And some people are going to places like, I know Brian has done a lot of business with Brown and Budnick in Dracut, and they've got a socially distancing protocol, as well as what they call a no contact takeout, which is there's a lot of places that are doing that around town. And not that we're not advocating for anybody to go to those particular businesses, but we're just pointing out that some of the things during this COVID-19 crisis, Market Basket is finally doing it. They're spraying down the carts before you go in, and they're handing you, they're putting spray on your hands to keep you, healthy. Try to keep you healthy. So, Brian, you have some experience with that stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, Sean, the Instacart, that worked out for us. We did, we put our little shopping list together, and we happened to, pick the malls we wanted to go to, and we put our wish list in, and as we had to wait a few days for it to come, and it just happened to be when when the person was shopping, they would message you and say, "Hey, we can't get product A. Would you like product B instead?" And we just gave them a little bit of input, and that worked out well. I did, for Brown and Budnick's, I call in the order, and they give you a time to go pick up the food, and so that's what I do there. And they prefer you use a credit card rather than passing cash, because the cash is carrying the virus, right? Cash used to be king, but today it's credit cards, right? Debit cards.
Anyone has any cash they're not safe, they don't feel safe with, I'll take it.
George, there's a couple barrelfuls in my backyard that are buried out there. So anytime you want, just help yourself, And
So are you doing takeout, Gordy? Have you been doing takeout, or are you trying to do as much cooking and having people deliver your food to your house?
I have not been doing any takeout. We did go to Brothers once last week, but since then I haven't done any takeout, trying to stay as safe as possible. I'm praying and hoping for all the businesses, Dracut, the restaurants and places that all of us go to are, I'm hoping they're taking advantage of Trump's small business loans where possible. And I hope they all survive this crisis, and I wish them all the best.
George, what are you doing for eating? Are you doing your takeout?
Yeah, we've done takeout. Maybe 2 or 3 times a week we'll do takeout. Originally when this all started, there was nothing in the stores, so I'd be going out. Me and my wife would be going out almost every day to see what they have. But now that they're restocked, we go once a week. It's kind of like when we had kids, we'll do a $150, $200 grocery order and then just live off it for a week. Fridge is a little bare today, so we'll probably go out today, if not tomorrow, if not then definitely Saturday. But, like I say, once a week to go shopping seems to be working fine.
Yeah. Are you finding that the stores are crowded, and are you wearing a mask when you go out?
Actually just got a mask. Somebody made it for me. So, I'll be using that and going forward when I go into the shop, and go into Market Basket. But, no, I don't think it hasn't been that crowded. I usually go off hours anyway. Try to just get out as quickly as I can.
We haven't used any takeout for at least 25, 26 days, but I would suggest that if you really want to help, like Gordy said, you want to help out businesses that are really hurting at this point in time, that you should maybe call up the company, and over the phone, many of the businesses will allow you to purchase a gift card, and you could do the transaction over the phone using your credit card, and they'll mail you the physical gift card. And I think that would show a good faith effort in trying to help the local establishments in town to sustain what they're doing. There's a lot of different companies that are doing a lot of takeout now, and they're doing what they call, again, those no contact takeouts, and they're advertising that, and they should absolutely, people should be trying to, if they're not in full lockdown, kind of like we are. Any kind of contact we're having no contact with anybody. If we go to the drugstore, we need our medications, my wife and I, so we go through the drive-through, and we use gloves when we pick it up, and when we put it in the car, we put it on the floor, and I have the Lysol spray or wipes, and we wipe it all off. Same way when we use Instacart, we have the delivery made to the front stoop, as we used to say in the old days, or our front deck, a porch. And then when they drive away, we go out, we spray it. My wife takes the wipes out, and we come in the house and we're wiping everything down. So we're being as safe as you possibly can be. But like someone said last time, and I think it was Phil Tebow, we got to eat, so we have to do something to eat. And by the way, I wanted to mention Phil Tebow today. He would have been joining us tonight, and I hope he's watching. If he is, maybe he can send us a message through Facebook and say hello. That he's recovering from about with some kidney stones. So Brian Bond had noticed that Phil all of a sudden had dropped off of our texting group, and that sends out 4 million texts a day. And he said that, and then another friend of ours had said that we haven't heard from Phil. What's going on with him? So Brian kept persisting and reached out. And finally, Phil answered and said after 3 days that he has been fighting kidney stone. Brian, you want to say something about that?
Well, no, I mean, it's, Phil's typically pretty, vocal on, hey, what do you, let's have a coffee, a virtual coffee or something, so he always wants to chat, always wants to have coffee out at Dunkin's, which we can't do now, but that doesn't mean we can't communicate or do a virtual coffee. And so we didn't hear from him for a couple of days. And so there was some concern there. So we had to do a wellness check to make sure he was okay. And the kidney stones, he probably wished he had the virus instead, right?
When I'm not hosting or lead host, I usually take a look at Facebook Live. Are you watching that, Brian, to see how many people are on there? And
we got quite a few people on, but we've got folks, Ray Sayre, Charlene Gertz, Jim Flynn, Bob Lemire, Betty Thompson, Michael Rose.
Anybody asking any questions?
Well, no, they're just, one asked how many cases, Dracut has, but we answered that, right? They mentioned there's an echo, that's typical. They said that I win on the background decor, right?
Yeah.
Well, not when John takes that flag down.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see what
there was somebody teasing John Zimney about, hey, it's April 1st, 2020. So
there we go.
Never saw that coming.
Yeah. Well, guys, there's a lot of stuff that we could be talking about. Have you guys been following what some commentators on Fox TV have been saying, and how the media has been trying to dispel this stuff with hydrochloroquine, and the fact that Trump had brought that out during one of his press conferences, and the MSM mainstream media has been excoriating him, even to the lowlifes that are saying that he might have a financial interest in it. Like he created this big thing just to make money off of the drug hydrochloroquine that's been around, by the way, for 65 years. What say you, George, on that issue?
Yeah, well, obviously it's silly that he's making money off it because it's already generic. There's no patent on it. But yeah, whatever. It's like the last 3 years. Whatever he's for, they're against. So, they're against a travel ban. Now, the travel ban's not good. It wasn't soon enough. The same thing with chloroquine. They're all talking about how dangerous it is, yet we're not seeing any, we're not seeing. If people were dying from this, I'm sure that would be the lead story. Every anecdote they talk about, it's a positive one. Like someone mentioned the woman from Michigan, but they can't say that. They have to find a dark cloud in every silver lining.
By the way, Gordy mentioned that the representative from Michigan, the Michigan House of Representatives, who is a Democrat, who now will be voting Trump, I'm sure, because she thinks he saved his life. Go ahead,
John, if I may, not only is she a Democrat, but she stands for everything the Democratic Party is, because she is a woman and she's a black woman.
Right.
So she hits all the targets that, the Democrats are like, really, pushing. And Trump's helped a Democratic black woman. And how dare he, right? That's their narrative now.
And now that she went on national TV and thanked him for bringing it out, she's about to get excoriated herself. What do you think, Gordy?
Yeah, I think political payback's going to be bad for her, but she, I have to give her credit. She went on all the talk shows, Fox, CNN, both, and thanked President Trump for doing what he did so she survived. I mean, she may be dead right now if it wasn't for President Trump. So I'm sure that makes President Trump feel good. It would make me feel good. But if you just go on YouTube and look for all the people that have lived because of that drug, not saying that, I'm not admitting that that drug is a cure-all, end-all, be-all for COVID-19, but what it's done for the people that I've personally seen on YouTube, I've got to believe that, I would agree with President Trump. It's a good thing.
There's a friend of mine whose nephew or son-in-law or something, I forget the name, Joe from Middleton. He was on death's door, and he insisted on taking hydrochloroquine, and he was actually at Beverly Hospital, and he actually took the hydrochloroquine and also the Z-Pack, and within 12 hours he had turned around. He was he was already on the the ventilator for a while, and the longer you're on the ventilator, the worse it is for you to come off, and probably it's 80% a death rate on the ventilators. So, but they gave him the chloroquine and the Z-Pack, and he came off of it, and went home yesterday. It was amazing, and he's shouting about that all over the place too. So this hydrochloroquine works for most people. Dr. Oz has said people have got to stop saying that this is a dangerous drug. It is not a dangerous drug. There's no one that's ever died from the drug. There's no one that's ever had any serious side effects other than maybe a rash, or something silly like a stomach ache. But no one has died from it. It's been around. Millions of people have taken this drug, and it's a safe drug. But I think that obviously the Democrats and the real lefties want to make it look so bad that Trump is pushing this drug, and he's got a special interest into it, and maybe he's just interested in America like he always has been. Gordy?
No, I agree, and I just want to take this time, and I know you guys agree with me here, is I want to just put a shout out to all of the medical workers, anyone that works in a hospital, anyone that works at a grocery store, all the truck drivers out there, all the people that are essential workers that are going to work and making sure we can have food, we can be protected, we can be safe at home. I mean, all the prayers go out with you. My wife, Jen, and I pray every night for all those people. We can't say thank you enough, how much you've done for this country, for the communities in the state. We love you. We hope you're all safe. It's bad out there. My wife comes home every day, tells me the stories about what's happening in the hospital, and I feel for every one of them. And I know that you guys all echo my sympathy for those people and our appreciation for all those people that are doing on the front lines, doing all that they do.
Absolutely. We have in my family, not only my daughter, but my brother-in-law, John Quateri, is the deputy chief in Chelsea, which is now rated as one of the hottest spots in Massachusetts. It has the most cases for any one city, and that city alone is only 1.8 square miles with about 80,000 people in it, and that is a condensed area. So you would expect that where people are living so close together, that's going to spread pretty rapidly if you're not doing extreme quarantining. And Brian, did you have something to add to that?
Nope.
No, okay. I thought you raised your hand. I didn't want to jump over you, but we pray for all of those first responders and those people who are on the front lines. And I absolutely think that I have, my daughter's a nurse. Your wife works in a hospital. Those people should be getting hazard pay. There's no question about it. I hope Congress does something for them. As Trump has said, this is a war. They're on the front lines. They're fighting it. They're putting themselves on the line. They definitely need to be compensated for it. I know Charlie Baker proposed a bill recently to help frontline people in hospitals and doctors' offices and what have you. Do you know anything about that, George?
I don't know anything about that specifically. The one thing that seems to be talked about now is you know, the signatures to run for office, they haven't changed those deadlines, which is making it really hard for, you know, non-incumbents to run. So the legislature really needs to step up and fix that.
We've got about 5 minutes left, guys. If there's anything that you really want to talk about, you can send me a little message through the chat box at the bottom of the screen, or you can just raise your hand and bring something up. But I wanted to throw out one more thing about the press conferences that Trump has been having. And, you know, there are people out there that want to stop the press conferences. And I know why they want to stop the press conferences, because the more they beat up on Trump, the higher his ratings go. Just today, there was a poll that was released. Fox had a poll that had him at his highest rating since taking public office. And I believe that there was another poll, I don't remember who it was, whether it was ABC or CNN that did it over the weekend, and he went from 48% approval rating among Americans. I think they had polled over 1,000 Americans. He went from 48% to 52%. And in that particular poll, 20% of Democrats, which is unheard of, 20% of Democrats actually gave him an approval rating, a high approval rating for the way he's doing it. Look at, you know, we can all have problems with the way he sometimes acts towards his nemesis, the mainstream media. But let's face it, they want nothing more than to just kill him. That's all. There's never a question like, how about asking the president, Mr. President, this has to be a weight on your shoulders. How are you and Melania handling this when you're off screen and when you're out of the office? How are you handling this? They don't want to make him human. They want to make him the devil. And it's a shame, but I think that this whole thing that they're doing, trying to prop up Sleepy Joe Biden in his bunker, there he goes. And Brian, we're gonna switch to you on that and let you talk about Sleepy Joe Biden.
Well, John, I think Trump has been doing a great job at his daily conference, and I think he's been putting the mainstream media in their place, and they deserve it. You know, they try to hit him with a gotcha question, and he just turns it right around and exposes them for what they're doing. They want to burn the house down at all costs. If they can burn the house down, even if it affects everybody in the country, as long as they can take Trump out, that's all they want to do. You know, we talked about it earlier. I don't think Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. I think they're going to spin Cuomo. I think like he's the most visible guy democratically right now, the most visibility. Biden's going to get his butt kicked, you know, especially when it comes to a debate, right? Right, Gordy? What do you think?
We have 2 minutes left, gentlemen. I just want to say today I had to abruptly hang up on somebody. Not really hang. Well, it was a hang up, but I had warned the person that I was hanging up on because he had called to talk about an issue that we talked about yesterday. We agreed on, and then today he called to really throw it in my face that he was wrong or whatever. This business of Trump knowing about the pandemic back in November and that he didn't act quick enough, that's all Democrat BS as far as I'm concerned. Even the person who put this memo together and sent it to the the National Security Council, the email never was addressed to Trump. He never saw the email, so he couldn't have known about it in November or December. But when he found out that China had a problem, he immediately went to shut down China. And he got excoriated for that by Joe Biden, saying that he was xenophobic and that, you know, he's way overboard. When in reality, thank God he did it. Thank God he did it. What say you? Anybody else want to say anything on that subject? Because we got
well, I mean, you know, he's not going to get everything right, but he's done a lot more right than he's done wrong. And of course, he's not going to get credit for it anyway. But, you know, I kind of agree with Brian. They can't run Biden. I mean, you know, Biden could lose all 50 states. I mean, you know, you listen to the guy, he can't like put a coherent paragraph together.
Yeah. Well, folks, we got to wrap this one up. We're already right on time. I hope they kept us on long enough. We want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we wanted to again thanks DATV and everybody and Brian for setting up this Zoom meeting. And we welcome your comments on our page, on Facebook page, the Dracut Connection. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Until we see you again, and we hope it's soon. Please, ladies and gentlemen, stay Dracut connected. Good night.